Right. Hello, my name is 50 Styles. I'm the creator of The Wonderful World of Puppets. You can see it played on my YouTube channel. It'll be uploaded probably by the time this goes out, but
Probably.
that's me. Probably, we'll see.
And yeah, I'm just tagging along. I was just like, what, the editor, kind of.
You
Not
were,
really. Like
you
co ed.
basically, you put like most of the footage together. It was me who just added the sound effects and music and post. That was all me.
Yeah,
But,
so,
but you came in clutch when I needed it.
so, so I think we need to clear up, like, the first question of the day, which is did you use AI to make this?
Absolutely not. AI is cringe, and if you use it, you're cringe. That's my public service announcement. The amount of sleepless nights I had working on this, AI could never replicate. I wouldn't want it to.
Ah, wow. That will transition into my first question. When did you first come up with the idea for the Wonderful World of Puppets?
So this was back in what was it? A few years ago, like a couple months or so after the trailer for the Amazing Digital Circus had come out. It was like early in the morning. I remember I couldn't really sleep just because you have those days you don't really find yourself able to fall asleep. And so I go to the common area in our dorm and I just start like sketching up ideas for this character. The first character I designed was Petal actually. And it kind of went on from there, went after the other. And then yeah, it definitely it evolved like way more beyond that point. So I'd say about like 3 years or so at most 3 years.
Oh my. So, a question I had was what was kind of like the thought process behind this? Like, when you were making it, like, did you have like more of a grand scale idea or was it more small scaled?
It was definitely more small scale. Like compared to the finalized product, the cast was smaller. The story wasn't nearly as fleshed out. The story is actually drastically different from what it used to be. I could go more in depth with that sort of thing later on as we get into like the characters and stuff, but it was definitely far simpler than what I flesh it out to be right now.
I see, I see. So, why did you specifically want to release this project now, though? Like, out of like all the other times?
So, because it was my senior year and I hadn't taken a lot of animation classes to begin with, I figured like I'd want to tell at least some story, like share some of my work to begin with, right? Like, because since I had no experience, like not that much experience with animation, I figured I'd want to at least try something, some sort of medium, and that's when I came across like the animatic sort of style where you draw every single frame that's shown, and you kind of have it put a narrative through that. So, and I figure now, just because it was the thing I had the most progress with, so I figure why not do this one?
I believe this was like your first project where it's like you are a director, right?
Yeah.
Where you weren't just like you weren't just saying like, oh well, I do this all by myself. Now you have to like manage so many different other people.
Mm.
How was it like hiring voice actors for the project?
Um, it wasn't like super difficult. I don't want to say like, oh, it was easy, I just did it in a night, but I just threw together like a form looking for voice actors and put it up across campus, and I just wanted to see if anyone was interested because at the time I didn't really have a vision for like, well, I had a vision for what they'd sound like or like how they'd sort of act and whatnot, but I didn't really have a sound for their voices yet. And so when I started getting like people sending me their voice samples, I figured, okay, yeah, this works perfectly for this character. This voice suits this character. And, I kind of just went from there, gave them instructions when I sent them their lines, that sort of thing. And I would say it went pretty well. I'm satisfied with, the final product. Of course, I want to give my thanks not just to the voice actors, but to everyone that auditioned. I'll try to credit them where I can. But yeah, absolutely, everyone who helped, every little bit helps, of course.
Got it. Another follow-up question I wanted to ask is, how did it feel managing people's tasks to make sure like the project could be completed by the deadline?
So it was a little trickier because everyone had their own schedules and stuff. There were some people who, voice acted that aren't even on campus. They didn't even go to the school that I was at. So it was a bit hard on that sort of end. In addition, I think what I probably should have done was get contact information a bit sooner than I did. Like I managed to get all the stuff that I needed at the right time. It was just a matter of, I think had I organized it better, I could have had it sooner and could have had time for, other stuff.
When did like the project really start like shaping focus?
Oh, okay. So that would be, I think it was around, not 2 years ago. I want to say like a year to 2 years ago when I started fleshing out the story more. I started getting more ideas on like what direction the characters could go because I knew I wanted it to be different from the Amazing Digital Circus. Like I know that's more like comedy focused, but I'm sort of like a story person first. And the more I imagined like what direction the story could go with these characters, I figure, okay, now that I like have this end goal in mind, I can maybe start with like the stepping stone, the pilot, kind of get the idea of these characters out there.
Was there like a particular moment in the project that you struggled with the most? Like character, like writing a character, the artwork, time, scripting, etc., etc.
Will definitely be the artwork. And I know you can kind of speak on this as well, but the day that I had asked you for help with editing, I had only just finished all of the artwork that morning, and then I had to rush to get it all edited together, and it was just the whole like I was pretty pressed for time, and I'm glad I managed to make it work, but I don't know where all that time sort of went. Like actually no, I can kind of say where the problem was. So my initial problem was figuring out if I wanted to animate it or do the animatic style. I eventually set it on animatic style afterwards, but when it came to like actually drawing all the stills, I wrote the script first, then I drew the stills afterwards, and I think that took up a bunch of my time because I had to redraw the characters doing a slightly different pose or their eyes looking a different way, and it was a lot more like in betweening than I really should have done. But like as it kind of went on, I started to focus more on just the whole scene overall. I'm sure it'll make a bit more sense. An example would be in one scene where Mime shows up and see kind of the character still like standing there. Had I done that, whereas like the overall scene versus like individual small changes, that would have definitely saved me some time. That was definitely where like the most challenge was for sure.
Understandable. So you also mentioned that you had like multiple different versions already, like how it rapidly changed. How many different versions of the script did you like have to go through and change?
Oh, the script itself actually didn't change all too much from the final product. There was like one or two like very short scenes I had to cut for time, but I think what actually changed more than the script was like the story itself, back from that initial concept. So I'll talk about it a little bit. So the initial concept, it only had six characters, or I think it's six. It'd be Petal, Strings, Stevie, Presty, and Shadow, and Doll. Those were the only six characters at the time, and there wasn't much of a story at that point. So they were just kind of in limbo for a couple of years. We have much of an idea what I wanted to do. Then I got into introducing, the rest of the cast, being Mime, Sketch, Gooby, Monomo, and Ratzler. That's when the story started changing, like, way more. Like, it started getting way more evolved. The characters have more, like, dynamic stuff to them. And then when it came time for this project, like I said before, I knew, like, how the entire story was gonna go, not just for this little animatic, but for like the entire show as a whole. And so I figured, this is like the version I want to tell. The script didn't change much, but the story definitely changed, I think, for the better.
What was it like to be the director of the project, managing people?
Not too bad, actually. I kind of looked back at a lot of, like pitch trailers, like teaser trailers for stuff that are like a few minutes long or so, and I figure, okay, I know the scale of it, so I'll work around that. And it definitely did not go that way. My initial idea was that it would be about like 2 minutes or so, and it's definitely not 2 minutes. I'll tell you that much. It's not 2 minutes. But as far as building it from the ground up, it wasn't too difficult. The most I had to do was write out what I wanted the trailer to kind of be about. I already had the characters and stuff, all those guys in place, and I knew like their backstories and whatnot. So I figured, okay, I can just kind of, have them in where I need them, and have them build off one another, and that sort of thing.
If you had like another opportunity to try this project again, or maybe try a sequel with something similar in scale, is there something you would change from this experience?
I would say definitely have the time management, how I had sort of organized things. For sure, the art stuff would have been done way faster, no doubt about that. And yeah, I think establishing like a way to communicate with all the voice actors that I would need to work on this sort of thing. Like, okay, this is how we'll communicate. This is where I need you to kind of send your stuff so I can listen to it, and then I'll kind of organize it as I go. I think had I started the editing like way sooner, like as I was going along with it and as I was getting the lines and stuff, I think that would have definitely helped. It's a matter of like making sure everything was ready at a timely manner.
Are there any personal projects you have planned in the future that you want to try and release down the line?
I definitely have way more in mind. I'll say that. I don't want to give too much away, but this is far from the only project I plan on, working on for right now.
Yeah, I know that.
You've seen some of my stuff. You know what I'm playing.
Oh, I know. Damn, you're crazy. That's all I can say. Respectfully, crazy.
I'm not attesting to that. I'm absolutely.
But personally, who is your favorite character out of all the ones you've created? I know it's kind of hard to pick a favorite.
Yeah, I do like them all. Don't get me wrong. I'll tell you what. I'll go through each of them and why they're kind of my favorite character.
Okay.
So, I would say for Petal, what I like about her the most is kind of her aspirations. Originally she went from like this sort of blank QT character with not much motivation, but now she has like a real drive to do what she's doing. She wants to make her mother proud in the context of the story. And I don't know, I think the direction I have like planned for her definitely makes me like her a lot more. And then for strings, I just love like the grumpy old character archetype. I took mainly inspiration from Carl from Up, not only in design but also like personality wise, that sort of thing. Um, for Stevie, what I like about him would have to be kind of like his drive, his dedication to like helping the maestro, being making the best show he can possibly make, that sort of thing. Yeah, I don't really have much on Stevie. Sorry, Stevie. He's just not, he's like the only sort of character I wish I'd flesh out a little bit more. But yeah. Presty, I mean, she's just the fun, energetic character that everyone loves. I love her dynamic with Bradford. That was actually the last minute change that I had done. I changed it so she and Rassler were now married, which would make Evie Rassler's stepbrother. And I don't know, how often do you see a magician and a cowboy, married in the same place? Shadow, uh, like the design. I just think Shadow looks cool. Simple as that. I can't say too much on there. Okay, Doll. If I didn't like them all, I'd probably say Doll is one of my favorites. But it's kind of for a spoilery reason. I can't really give it away too much, but just know there's more to Doll than meets the eye. That's all I'll say for now. So for Mime, my favorite thing would have to be kind of how out of place she is in the whole show. Like color-wise, in the initial concept, she was very desaturated, very standoutish from the original cast. She's not as colorful or as bright as them, but we somehow fit like a whole aesthetic. That's what I would say. For Sketch, it kind of also comes down to her design and her personality, because I went for more of a Hobie Brown Spider-Verse kind of style for her, where like in the reality where this was like an actual show, 3D animated, she'd be the only like two-dimensional character, appearance-wise, of course. And it's just like she's always changing her appearance because she doesn't like following the rules. Why stick to consistency when you can be your own thing,
Fair enough.
And for Gooby, he's just adorable. That's kind of all you need. He's just adorable. For Monomo, definitely their dynamic, I would say, because in the show they're brothers. Of course, I didn't really say that in like the final product itself, but very much like a sibling rivalry sort of thing going on. Granted, everyone who has like siblings would kind of know like they're always bickering with your sibling, but you wouldn't want to live without them, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Kind of the dynamic I went with them. And for Rassler, I mean, I think it's just he's just a chill guy. I think that's just what it is. Rassler's just a chill guy. Just so cool. Oh, and then finally, for the Maestro, I think I like him due to his Russian accent. I get to portray him all by myself. I get to do that voice whenever I feel like it. So fun. So great time, I have to say.
I think I've been talking a lot about like kind of the negatives when it comes to a lot of creative projects. Like, what did you really like working on the most?
I think for me, it would have to be, just the voice actors. They were kind of fun to work with. We recorded a bunch of funny bloopers. I'll get those out eventually, but definitely like the voice actors for sure. They were a ton of fun to work with. It was so much fun having them, read my silly little project script and just get to see this whole thing come together, like actually in reality. That's kind of really cool to me.
So You also said that you were inspired by like the Amazing Digital Circus. Was there any other inspirations that came to mind to shape this project?
Yeah, so apart from just Digital Circus, there was a lot of inspiration drawn from like kind of Saturday morning cartoons. I wanted to go for that old school classic kind of vibe. Think like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. You know, shout out to whoever remembers that show, but like you pop the DVD, your DVD player, you get to pick through like the episodes and stuff. That's definitely the sort of vibe I wanted to go through. But think of this as like a sort of just a pitch for it, like a TV commercial, if you will. That was definitely like I'd say Digital Circus meets like Saturday morning cartoons meets the Super Mario Brothers Super Show for some reason.
From what I remember from the pilot, it was mostly just a lot of character-driven interactions. Is there any personal character interactions that you would really like to develop, possibly in the future?
I think so there's a couple of them, yeah. For one, Sketch and Gooby, I think so this was also kind of a last minute change that I thought of while working on this project. Like, what if, the rebellious, artsy girl and like the cutesy plushy kid were like the best of friends for some reason? And I think that dynamic is just super fun. And I definitely want to explore that a lot more. Another dynamic I want to see like kind of fleshed out is Petal and Doll because, well, again, this I won't spoil anything, but their kind of connection is very important in the overall narrative of the show, and I do want to develop that further. I do have an idea where it's gonna go, but stay tuned. Stay tuned for that sort of thing. And then, I'd say probably Presty and Rassler are like the other two I want to flesh out. Like, I've only really implied that they were, together in a relationship, but we never really got to know like too much about that, and I'd love to delve a bit more into that as well.
What types of programs did you use? Because I know it's like some people might be curious on like what types of programs you use, just so it's like they don't have to feel like, oh no, I can't get into this because I don't have like a $7,000 software.
Yeah, so I use Photoshop for the finalized sort of stills in the animatic, and I also use Krita, which is a free program that lets you animate, draw as well. It's also free, if I didn't say that already, because Adobe just loves to eat my storage. I think that's why my audio disconnected, because I was talking trash about Adobe. You must have heard me.
You can never speak bad of them.
Exactly. Then for the editing, I use DaVinci Resolve. Super easy program to kind of get into. This guy, he knows a lot about DaVinci Resolve. Taught me everything I know. Oh, right. And for the audio, I actually just used my iPhone for some of the like recordings and stuff. But a couple of the voice actors had their own sort of recording software, so they just kind of sent in what they did. But for me, it was just, I think it's the voice memos on the iPhone. That's what it's called. Yeah, voice memos. That's what I used. And I have to build up to, getting all the stuff together. It's a lot of hard work, but it'll definitely pay off in the long run. I kind of want to say that to any aspiring people working on their own projects and whatnot. Like, it's gonna take time. It's gonna feel like hell, but when you finally put everything together and when it's all said and done, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love all the work you put in.
I think that's all the time that we kind of need. I mean, that's all the questions I had lined up, at least.
Well, thank you for, reaching out to interview me. I appreciate it. We totally didn't set this up like days in advance.
Yeah, anytime.
And yeah, thank you so much to everyone listening. Go check out The Wonderful World of Puppets. It's on my YouTube channel. Link in the description. Always wanted to say that. And yeah, that's all I got. That's all from me.